In other words, the fire of knowledge that purifies and that brings about love, the love of the divine. So the love of knowledge and the knowledge of love join. And to elaborate and explore that infinitely vast theme, we have two very distinguished speakers who both have the very unique and a very privileged position of being both involved in the spiritual teaching path, but also of having a very direct and long-standing practice and experience of the most practical aspects of today's life, whether it is management or the very basic education and training for life in the enterprise, as well as in the non-profit sector. I will briefly introduce them because they actually require no detailed presentation. Swami Mitrananda ji from Chinmaya mission. I had the privilege in my tender years of listening in person to Swami Chinmayananda ji. And Swami Mitrananda is the founder, among other programs, of the aspects of the Chinmaya mission which address specifically active life and particularly business and management. He has created also the what you might call the youth wing, Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, and therefore is particularly well placed to connect the teachings of, I would say, the Hindu Dharma in general, of the Sanatana Dharma, with the needs and demands of today's society and civilization. The other speaker is Raghu Ananthanarayanan, who founded the Ritambhara ashram and who also has extensive experience in the field of practically managing, guiding, and creating corporations and applying the spirit of yoga and the guidance of yoga in daily life, but particularly with regard to corporate and generally speaking, social organization and leadership. So without saying much more than this, I will now let the speakers interact with each other, and I will...
Yeah. So, Gurubhyo Namaha. Since this is the first of a series of talks we are giving on the various ideas of Saptaswara, and we're calling very eminent people to have a dialogue with us. I thought it'll be useful to give you a framework of what we mean by the Saptaswara and how it came up. There are two parallel routes that have led to our looking at the Saptaswara. What we mean by Saptaswara are 7 key ideas that we've taken from the Yoga Sutra, which talk about Antaranga Sadhana, which is the inner development of the psyche. Now, why this has become important is that over the years, while asana and pranayama have become very well known and sometimes well known enough to get into distorted understandings of both of asana and pranayama, there's a very important part of yoga which is called Antaranga Yoga, and this is differentiated from what is called Bahiranga Yoga. So asana, pranayama, yama, and niyama usually referred to as Bahiranga Yoga. And then you transition to Antaranga Yoga, where you cleanse the psyche. And this cleansing of the psyche and creating a psyche that is capable of ekagrata, or capable of attention and one-pointed focus, is an extremely important transition. Without this transition, what my teacher Krishnamacharya would say is that when you talk about areas which are referred to as Parama Antaranga Yoga, which is deeper forms of Jnāna and Samadhi, become Vikalpa. So this very critical intermediate space where you look at yourself clearly, you understand the shadow parts of yourself, you understand how the psyche works, is an extremely important transition. So in Ritambhara, we are focusing largely on this Antaranga Yoga, right? And the 7 words that are very important, it came up because, when I was doing my consulting work, one of the younger people, I was consulting for an organization for a long time, the second generation was taking over. So one of the younger people challenged me and said, you keep talking about Indian stuff, it's all very complicated. So I said, let me get back to you. And I usually, when these kind of challenges come, I sit back, do some pranayama, think about it for some time. So one morning when I was doing my pranayama, I got these 7 words in my mind. And all of these words are fundamentally from the Yoga Sutra. So the first word is Maitri. And this is an extremely important word in all Indic philosophies, Buddhist, Jain. It just simply means understanding friendship and compassion, not only for others, but for yourself. Now, the second word is karma, which is intensity, involvement, and acting with a full emotional power that one has. That's what we mean by karma. And then we look at the word dharma, which is when I'm acting, can I act in a way that enlivens me, enlivens people around me, and enlivens the entire context that we live in. So we're looking at dharma from this fairly simple but profound idea. And then we look at jnana, because unless I have deep understanding and insight, the first 3 become rather superficial. And then we look at the word called ramyam. Ramyam is delight, beauty. When you go to a temple, the architecture of the temple creates ramyam inside you. And then we look at the word yogam, where we are primarily focusing on integrating all our energies and bringing it to a mindful focus. And the last word we look at is abhyasa. How do I practice all of these in everyday living? So that's the Saptaswara that we are focusing on. And we find that it is giving people a tremendous ability to look at themselves, to live their daily life in a certain way that is beautiful. We call it rasatmik. Because the other very interesting thing that Krishnamacharya said is that a mature person is somebody who can experience all the navarasas of life without any barrier either in the experiencing of it nor any attachment to any of these experiences. So the person is actually living in Shantam while being able to experience all the rasas. So we try to live up to this, and the Saptaswara is one of the flagship offerings that we've designed. We've worked with it with lay people. The internet went off at the right time, Kamji. I was just handing it over to Swamiji for him to talk about Jnana, and maybe the internet figured it out correctly.
Very true, Yogi. You decide when things have to happen. Swami Mitrananda ji, to you. Yeah. I'm sorry, by the way, that I sort of reversed the the sequence of participation, but I.
There's absolutely no issues on it. Yeah. My salutations to Mr. Kom, Mr. Raghu, Sudarshan, and to everybody. Pranam. Good evening. The most abused word in the recent times is yoga and meditation. Anything you can do and add yoga. I remember once I had a camp in Bali, Indonesia, and there was a nearby place called Ubud. And people took me to Ubud. And the campsite where we were staying, there were other people also conducting camps, and I saw a poster. Absolutely strange poster. The poster says, early bird catching worm yoga. Early bird catching worm yoga. Now, what do you say? Early bird, I mean, well, whatever they meant, I don't know. But the most abused words in the recent times is, in my understanding, is meditation and yoga. The word yoga means, it comes from the word yuj in Sanskrit. That means to join. Yoga, yuj, to join. So the jiva joins with the Paramatma. That is the final yuj, absolute. The individual merges into the higher. The human recognizes that he or she is divine. Merging, joining is yoga. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses this word very often just to remove this notion that yoga doesn't restrict itself to physical asanas and pranayama. Yoga is much more deeper than these. So Bhagavan Krishna uses these terms very often, and so beautifully he tells Arjuna in the Gita, Arjuna, therefore become a yogi. Tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna. It's a beautiful line. Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna. Bhava, become. Therefore you become yogi Arjuna. And in the entire 18 chapters, if you see, he never told Arjuna to sit in an asana and pray. Only in 6th chapter, when he was guiding about meditation, he used to talk about how to sit, keep the back erect, and few instructions. And in some of the chapters earlier, we did mention about pranayama, but very minimum. So yoga is much more all-encompassing, all-accommodating word. So in the Gita, Krishna gives a few beautiful definitions about yoga. Therefore, Arjuna, you and I, Arjuna, we become that yogi. What is it? In the 2nd chapter, Krishna uses a lovely phrase. He says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Now, this is a very beautiful line and a very beautiful way of looking at yoga. Samatvam, a mind which is balanced, is yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. It is said, what is yoga? Uchyate. When Krishna says yoga uchyate, uchyate means he is not saying it is my opinion. I am telling you, this is balance of mind as yoga. It is said by the rishis in the Shruti. In the Vedas, it is clearly mentioned, balance of mind is yoga. So we have to understand it is not a term just given in the Bhagavad Gita, but from the Yoga Sutras, from the rishis of your balance of mind is also yoga. Now, this balance of mind, if we practice, we are yogis. Because in our life, please understand, we would get all kinds of experiences. Sometimes very favorable experiences. Sometimes experiences would be that which we don't even like to look at, would come to us. All kinds of experience, because that's when the life becomes complete. That's when the life becomes full. If we live only one kind of an experience, we won't even know what the other is. So to understand life, life has to throw us all kinds of experiences. In all these experiences, we should not get too elated nor too rejected. A moderation. Don't get too excited about what comes to you. Because what comes to you will be there for a while and it will move away, it will pass. And what we don't like also when it comes to us, that is also not going to stay with us forever. They will also move away. So to get overly worked out on something which we did not want came to us, or overly excited about anything which we want, we got it. Krishna says in both these, get yourself balanced. Keep your mind balanced between joy, sorrow, love, hate, favorable, unfavorable, victory, defeat. In all these dvandvas, when they come to us, we should know to keep ourselves balanced. When Kaikeyi called Ram and told Ram, before Kaikeyi calling, Dasharath called Ram first and said, I'm going to crown you as the king. Get ready for your coronation. Rama smiled. He said, okay. because he was trained for it. He said, okay, and he was fine. And after a while, Kaikeyi calls Rama and says, Ram, get ready to go to the forest. That's the word your father gave. You lost your kingdom and you need to go to the forest. At that moment too, Ram just smiled, saying, oh, is that okay? That's what it is. Fine, I'm ready. That is yogi. Samatvam yoga uchate. Rama demonstrated what is yogi there. Imagine what he got was a kingdom. And next moment taken away. Not even to stay in the stone palace, but asked to leave, exile into the forest for 14 years. He could take the elation of the coronation and the exile, same with a smile. That was yogi. That is yogic power. Life will offer all kinds of things. We should know to stay balanced. How do I stay balanced? With clear understanding. That is where Jnana Yoga comes into. Jnana Yoga very clearly says that every experience has a beginning and has an end. The entire world in which we live is anitya. It is impermanent. It's just a play. It will come and go. So when they come and go and they are not going to be there forever, we should neither get excited with what we get nor depressed with what we get. Let them come and go. Meet them equally with a smile. That is yoga. In the battlefield, in Mahabharata war, Krishna was a yogi. We always call him Yatra Yogeshwara. 11 Akshoyinis of the Kauravas and 7 Akshoyinis of the Pandavas, 18 Akshoyinis. If you translate the Akshoyini, divide them into today's numbers, it goes to 30 lakhs plus, 32 lakhs. Soldiers have gathered in that war, 32 lakh soldiers. Friends, can you imagine what would be the support staff of these people? What would be the support staff of the horses, the camels, the elephants, the cooks, and the people who serve, and the ones who take care of the soldiers? Imagine all put to them, there should have been 40-45 lakhs of people gathered. In that Kurukshetra, Krishna wanted Dharma to be established, and his main player was Arjuna. And that moment, Arjuna takes his hands off. He says, I'm done. Let me withdraw. Let me run away to a cave. I don't need to be here. It's better the Kauravas rule. What is the use of gaining a kingdom like this? Fighting my own brothers, my cousins, this, that. The main player who has to defend Dharma is withdrawing. If you wanted something very badly and you were born to establish that, and your main player speaks to you like this, how would you respond? When somebody who is not your main player doing something is okay, your main player is doing this to you, how would you respond? Shattered, scream, go mad, crazy, panic. Krishna didn't do. He smiled. He looked at Arjuna and he said, oh, I didn't know this was there in you, that you could break down like this. He smiled and he gave him the knowledge, and he was confident that Arjuna can recover. There, when Arjuna withdrew completely, Krishna was not shattered. He was a yogi. And Sanjaya, who is reporting the Mahabharata war to the blind king Dhritarashtra, tells, in that battlefield, Arjuna dropped his arms and everybody, nobody knew what's going on there. Arjuna looks like panicked, broken, and he tells the blind king, but this man has not lost his smile. Krishna, in a tense to war atmosphere, he has not lost his smile. Prahasaniva Bharata. Hey Dhritarashtra, Bharata. This man, Krishna, has not lost his smile. In a war field, he who doesn't lose a smile is a yogi. Please think. Smiling. And he taught Arjuna, Arjuna, you have to fight this war. You are here to do this, fight this war, but without hatred. That is yoga. Enter into a war, understanding what is to be done. You need to kill people. You're a killing machine there. And you're going to kill people, but do it without any hatred here. Adveshta sarva bhutana, maitra karuna evacha. Adveshta, do not hate anybody. Incapable, a devotee cannot hate, a yogi cannot hate. Adveshta sarva bhutana, maitra karuna evacha. Be friendly, be compassionate, but you need to kill him. The right action you have to take, but it need not come from the hatred. Now imagine entering into a war with this mind. There is no hatred for the opposition, but the right action has to be done, and then you do. When a person lives like that, he is a yogi. That yogi can never accumulate karma. Action performed in the spirit of yoga, no karma can be accumulated. That is what Krishna taught Arjuna as samatvam yoga uchate. Balance of mind is yoga. Hey Arjuna, balance of mind is yoga. We need to keep this balanced mind always. How do we do this? How do I get my balance? One point we discussed already, that anything coming will come and go. We need not pay too much attention to it. It will come and go. So I need not be too much attached to what comes or what I don't get. I need not be depressed. That is one. Second point, when we have a higher vision of life, a greater or a nobler vision of life, lower things in life will not disturb us. A yogi has his vision on God, union with the Lord. Yujya, to join with the higher. A yogi has that vision to join with the higher. When the vision is for the higher, the lower things will come and go, but will definitely not disturb a person. Samatvam can be managed beautifully. All we need to do is change our goals. That's why many a times in the Gita, you will find Krishna telling, and the Upanishads also say the same, telling the destination is the highest, the Lord, Parandama. Parandam, Dham, the abode. The highest abode is that. We as humans, by the time we depart from earth, we must be divine. Then we are a yogi. Born human, when we have to exit from this planet, we must be divine. Then we have lived a yogic life. Because yogi wants to join with the higher. By developing a higher vision, we can play with the lower. It would never matter. We can enjoy the lower game. But when we don't have a higher vision, the lower becomes too intense on us. That's when the balance is gone. We fall off being a yogi. As long as we manage the balance, we are a yogi. To manage balance, we need to always keep the higher vision in mind. That helps. So one is understanding everything coming and going will come and go, fine. Anitya vastu, like let it come and go. I should not get, that is one. Second is being inspired by a higher vision. When we are inspired with a higher vision, the lower things in life would not disturb us. So that is the second way a yogi lives. And then in the same second chapter, Krishna gives another beautiful definition. And the definition is, he says, Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. This is a very beautiful definition. Dexterity, skill in the action what we perform is yoga. Any action, if it is skillfully performed, it is yoga. That means yoga is something not that I do only in the morning and then I do in the evening, or when I sit and do my pranayama, I'm a yogi. No, in every action we can practice yoga. What is it? Kushalam. Yoga karmasu action. Kushalam, kaushalam, dexterity, skill. When any action performed skillfully, that is yoga. What a beautiful definition. Now imagine bringing a glass of water and giving it to somebody can be yoga when it is done with the right intense, right attitude, right way of offering it, right mindset, can be yoga. Most of the time, we do actions where our mind is partly involved, not fully. Most of the time, mind is far away from where the body is. We perform an action without mind involved in it. When we keep the mind and body together, that is yoga. To do something skillful, mind and body should be in the same place. If the mind runs into the future, rather anxious for the future, or worries of something which has happened in the past, we are not there physically. I mean, we are there physically, we are not there mentally. When mentally I am not there and the action is performed, that action is not dexterous. It is not skillful. Mind, body should be there. Look at it. With the mind and body in the same place and action performed with utmost care, then that is yoga. In Japan, mostly the Zen masters and others practiced serving tea as Zen. That is yoga. Please think. Bodhidharma, who went from Tamil Nadu to China and gave them Jnāna. Dhyan means attention, body, mind, skillful. Dhyan. The Chinese could not say dhyan, they said Chyan. And from China, when Bodhidharma's wisdom reached Japan, Chyan became Zen. So Zen is a grandchild of yoga. You understand? Zen is a grandchild of yoga. You see Zen masters, they say Zen and the art of archery, Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. They bring Zen everywhere, which is nothing but yoga karma sukhaushalam. Walking, a tea can be served, and that's how so beautifully they did. How a tea, offering a tea in Japan is Zen. In other words, yoga. How we take a cup of tea, the mixture, how we make the tea first place. How are you involved in making the tea? Adding every ingredient, getting the right flavor, getting the right temperature, and serving it in a perfect place, in a perfect plate, things like that. Every small details is taken care, and while serving, the right smile, the right gestures, the right gaze in the eye, all these details are given, and then they serve tea. Another person also who has gone to sip that cup of tea also sits in that kind of a posture, takes the cup of tea. Every bit of the action is done with absolute attention. That is yoga. Yoga karma sukhaushalam. Dexterity in action is yoga. A tea, they practice serving tea. Now imagine Arjuna going into the warfare, yogi, basically after the knowledge which was given to him. Without even hatred, you go and fight the war. Going and killing someone because they stood for something which is not acceptable, but without hatred, that is yoga. So serving a cup of tea can be yoga. If you do any action with absolute attention and doing it skillful is yoga. I'll give you another example. This is very interesting. When Hanuman meets Rama for the first time. In Valmiki Ramayana, you should read this and it is so beautiful. When Hanuman meets Ram for the first time, Hanuman goes in the disguise of a scholar, because they were living in a mountain which is called Rishyamukh Parvat. Sugriva was staying there. That's the only place his brother Vali could not attack him. Sugriva was taking asylum in that mountain. And when these two young princes, Ram and Lakshman, were passing there, Sugriva got scared. He thought they could be Vali's spies. Vali sending spies to check on Sugriv, because Vali had a curse that he can't enter that mountain. So since Vali can't come, he must be telling or sending serial killers. And that's how Sugriv looked at Ram, Lakshman. But they must be coming here to kill. So he tells Hanuman, look, somebody has come. They are strange. I saw them this morning from my cave, from the top of the mountain. Now you go check who they are, find out who they are, come back to me and report. This is all Sugriv tells. So Hanuman changes himself like a scholar, goes there and meets Ram. Now it's a very simple meeting. Ram and Hanuman meet. All that Hanuman did was he introduced himself saying, I am so and so. I am here. My king is here. I have come here. And may I know who you are? That's all. He made an introduction of himself and he wanted to know who they are. The way in which he introduced himself and the way in which he asked who they are, who is in front of him, Ram looks at Lakshman and tells Lakshman, Lakshman, this man, whoever he be in front of us, has read all the 4 Vedas. Do you see the compliment? And it could have been less than 1 minute introduction. I am so and so. I am Hanuman from, let us say, from Kishkinda, and my king Sugriva is here. I am so and so. May I know who you are? But the way in which he uttered every word, Hanuman's gaze, Hanuman's tone, the right smile, the right sense of confidence and humility. Please understand, sometimes we come too brash with our confidence. Sometimes we go down so humble, the other person is not comfortable with your humility. There is a balance of everything. Hanuman had a perfect balance of all that in the less than a minute introduction. And Ram saw that. How alert Ram must be. Looking at this guy, who's this guy? Such an impeccable presentation he did in less than a minute. He tells Lakshman, Lakshman, whoever this man who is in front of us, he has read all 4 Vedas. Vidwan he is. Yogi. In that action, Hanuman was yoga karmasu kaushalam. Dexterity in action. Just a minimal introduction. He brought yoga. Now this spirit of yoga should come to us. In small things, what we do, let's do with a yogic mind. Even when you sign off, how do you sign off? When you say bye to someone, how do you say it? Or when you say good morning next day, how do you say it? Are you a yogi? If we bring this attention in doing everything as best as we can, to the best of our ability, skillfully, then that action is yoga. Now think. Adi Shankara, in his commentary on this particular verse, Yoga Karma Sukhaushalam, on this particular verse, on this particular line, Shankara says one step more. He says it so beautifully. He says, yoga, dexterity, doing an action absolutely beautiful is yoga, no doubt. Bringing all the skill in that action is yoga, correct? But the action which you perform should not even leave a karma behind. Do you understand? What is yoga? Performing action in a manner it does not leave a karma behind. What we do will come back to us. So what we do, which should only enhance us for betterment. It should not bring anything negative on us, so that we do not accumulate karma through our actions. Yoga Karma Sukhaushalam, perform action in such a manner that there is no karma attached to you after that action. No karma phala chasing you after that action. How can I do it? Action in Karma Yoga, principles of Karma Yoga are very simple. The action you perform must be performed with dedication to the Lord. Dedicate that action to the Lord, number one. Second, whatever be the outcome of that action, don't be attached to it. Number one, dedicate your action. Number two, whatever be the outcome of that action, don't be attached to it. Number three, to that very action, don't be attached. Number one, dedicate your action to the higher altar. It could be someone who you adore. It could be the Lord. It could be your mentor. It could be your nation. It could be your mom. It could be your dad. It could be anybody whom you adore. You have great respect and love. Dedicate your action to them, saying, this I'm doing for you. This, what I'm doing now, is a dedication to you. This sense of dedication will empower the mind to perform better. Number one. So action should be dedicated to the higher. And what is the outcome of that? Let us accept. Saying, I gave my best. Now what comes, I accept. A yogi accepts gracefully what comes out of his effort. He will not insist why this has come or why that has come. He says, I gave my best. Now whatever comes, I would accept. Would not insist on a particular result. That is yoga. Giving your best, but not insisting on a particular result. This is what I should get. No, he would not insist. I have done my best. Now what comes, I would accept. Not insisting on karma phala, accepting whatever comes. Second point. Third point, to that very action, which can be very noble action, which you're dedicating to the higher, don't become an addict to it. Don't be attached to that action. So, not attached to the action, accepting the outcome, whatever it comes, dedicating the action. If these three we do, then it is karma yoga. So when Krishna tells Arjuna, yoga karma sukhaushalam, he meant do actions in this spirit. And this is what Shankara says, the karma phala will also not come. So action has to be performed where karma phala doesn't chase us. That is skillful living. Now, when an action is performed with this intensity, with such dedication, imagine the quality of that action going up. Every now and then, when you keep doing it, you are continuously improving upon your action. A yogi is one who will continuously improve his own action, the quality of his action. So when a person is practicing yoga, he continuously improves his own action again and again. The quality of action goes up, up, up. When the quality of action goes up, 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 that means qualitative action is close to excellence, close to perfection, close to siddhi. Siddhi. It is close to siddhi, perfection. That means, you know what is a habit for a yogi? Yogis' habit is excellence. Excellence is the habit a yogi practices. Because every time he goes to do, he improves upon himself. So that excellence has become a habit. So when a yogi does anything, will look so graceful. I have heard something. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had a disciple by name Mahendranath. They used to call him M. Mahendranath, M. And if you read that book, The Gospel of Ramakrishna, is a beautiful book, and there you will find this character M. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was once folding a shawl. He was wearing a shawl, Angavastra or a shawl. He was just folding it. Watching Ramakrishna Paramahamsa folding a shawl, Yam went into samadhi. A person can go into trance Watching someone just fold a shawl. What a perfect yogi Ramakrishna must be. Just a shawl he must have folded, but folded with such grace, full skill in it. Watching that, the disciple goes into trance. Yoga karma sukhaushala. So this way, Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, you need to perform actions this way. So skillful in what you do. Then every action becomes excellent. We have a new habit called performing to excellence. Empowered by yoga to be excellent. And this way, if one lives a qualitative life. And this idea of yoga karma sukhaushalam, which is absolutely yogic tradition, yogic philosophy, what is yoga defined by the Upanishads, etc. In the modern world, we use the term sometimes attention. Sometimes we call it awareness. Sometimes you doing things attentively. Performing things attentively is yoga. This way, Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, become a yogi. Tasmat yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore, Arjuna, become a yogi. Now, how do we do this? Simple. Small things which we are doing now onwards, let's do it with absolute care. Let's do it with full attention. You are examining yourself. How well are you doing this? There's nobody else to examine, but you're testing yourself. Am I doing this correct? This way, in small, small things, if we bring, we can become very attentive. We can become a yogi. So how do we go about identify for tonight onwards? Don't wait till tomorrow. Yogi never waits. He is in the now. So today, choose 4 or 5 actions which you perform daily. 5 activities which we perform daily. I'm sure, let's say you're going to drink a glass of water after the session. Now an action like drinking water, make it yogic. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Drink that glass of water with absolute yogic mind. Feel how you sip the water, how it travels in your tongue, how it slips down. Be fully aware. How you pick the glass, how you place it back. Be there. Like this, identify 5 activities. Simple activities. This is the easiest way to succeed in life in yoga. Don't try to do yoga in all. We have to eventually get there. That is the gati. That is the goal. But where do I start? I start with 5. Let us say it could be something simple like taking your glasses, wiping it, and then putting it back. For action, something this simple, we must do yoga karma sukhaushalam. A small action like this. So check yourself, pick up 5 actions which you can do, 5 activities, and do it with this spirit. This 5, if I do every day for next few days, a week or 2 or 3 weeks, let us say, if you practice these 5 activities as yoga for next 3 weeks, you become a master slowly. Then from this 5, very naturally you can take up 10, 20, 30 activities in a day, which can be done this way. This way, if we practice, in a matter of time, let us say, it depends upon the intensity of involvement in each one, very soon one would become a yogi. Yoga karma sukhaushala. This is doable. I have seen my teacher, Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda doing this. I've seen his attention when he does japa. I have seen him once stitching a button for his shirt. Someone was stitching and that person was stitching little shabbily. He saw, he said, give it to me. I'll do it. And he did. He just took the needle and the button and he was stitching it. The way in which it went, what you call Zen, yoga, it went, and the way in which he pulled the thread, his attention on the thread and the needle, and that jerk he gave so that it is tight, comes back again, does it. Was a sight to watch, practicing. Yoga karma su kaushalam. The way in which one eats, one can practice yoga. I'm not talking about the quantity, how you cherish the food, what is served. How you eat, are you there? That can be yoga. This is called yoga karma su kaushalam. So samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga karma su kaushalam. If we practice these two in the spirit of karma yoga, what we said, this is the kind of student Krishna was looking at. And therefore he told Arjuna, Tasmat yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore become yogi Arjuna. Come on, let's become a yogi. That is the way to become a yogi. Okay, I stop here now. And we can move into question answers and dialogues.
Thank you, Swamiji. May I ask now Raghuji to say a few more words in response to what has been said.
Thank you. Thank you. Swamiji, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the current tension that's been created between logical positivism, about content of knowledge, and what would the difference between the word knowledge as it is held scientifically and posited as though it's a binary with something like Jnāna. Because in my understanding, Jnāna would encompass both the knowledge of the specifics of the Vishesha world and the more deeper Avishesha world and the even more deeper world. If you can talk to us a little bit about the difference between Jnāna, Vijnāna, some of these, and in a sense dissolve this unnecessary binary between these things, it'll help.
See, knowledge, when we say,
hear you on that.
The knowledge as such, if we look at it, it is of two types. Traditionally, we call it paravidya, aparavidya. Paravidya is spiritual knowledge, which is absolute. Param means absolute. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Parameshwara. Param means absolute, the highest, nothing beyond. So there is one knowledge which talks about the highest, that is called Paravidya, Param, Paravidya. Another one speaks about that which is not absolute, that means which is relative. That which is not absolute means which is relative, Apara, Aparavidya. Knowledge about relative and knowledge about absolute. Our education should be of both. Our education should be of both. We must be educated on the relative because that's where we live. And that is not the only goal of our life, to live in the relative world. In being in the relative world, we must seek the absolute. So we must have knowledge about Paravidya and Aparavidya. With that we should go. And then comes Jnāna and Vijnāna. One who has these two, knowledge, intellectual information about relative world and also about the higher world, is a Jnāni. Vijnāni is that information becomes experience. One is information, Jnānam. Transformation is Vijnanam. Information, I know about something, well informed, that is information. When that information becomes my own experience, I know it. It is not an information anymore. I feel it. I have experienced it. It is called wisdom. Knowledge is knowing, wisdom is doing. So when knowledge becomes one's own, it becomes transformation, Vijnana. Information applied into daily living becomes transformation, Vijnana. So both relative knowledge, higher knowledge, once we get that information, we are Jnani. And once that becomes our living, then we become Vijnani. Vijnana is experience combined. Jnana is information only.
Yeah. Another question that's related to this, no? Because you were speaking about Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and one of the favorite terms that Vivekananda is supposed to have used often is from the Upanishad, no? That Dashamapi Panditaha Eko Balavan Akampayate. It comes in the Bhuma Vidya, where he would say that to arise, to make people in India arise, right, and not waste time in unnecessary argument and so on. He often used this term, right, that even if there are 100 panditas, one person with conviction can make all of them shiver in their pants, literally, akampayate. So if you can elaborate on what is the depth of conviction, how does it impact, and what's the difference between just, like you said just now, information, superficial knowing, because that's become the fashion today. You just go use your thumbs, you get something on the screen and you think that you know. What's the difference between this and conviction?
See, today's generation is widely read. On every topic, they'll have little information, not well read. Vidwan is well read. You don't have to read 1,000 books. Let's say you read one book and read it well. The gist of 1,000 books are there in it. Widely read, well read is very important. So most people go widely read, gather all kinds of information on everything, very little information, and it is of no use. Now, going back to what Vivekananda said, we need to understand, he's not talking about the kind of a pandit which Krishna refers in the second chapter. Asochan anvasochastvam prajnavadanscha bhashase gatasun agatasunscha nanu sochanti panditaha. Nanu sochanti panditaha. Sochanti, a wise man, a pandit, will never worry. Definitely Vivekananda is not talking about a pandit like what Krishna has spoken. So Vivekananda would have translated that to his language of his time, someone who is widely read, scholarly informed, far away from living, but widely read, who has gathered scholarly information. So he must have addressed them saying, among them, if there is one pandit like what Krishna said, Nanu sochanti panditaha, the wise man never worries, he never grieves. Among them, if there is one jnani who has attained the truth, who knows about it, fearless person, one is more than enough. People who are well read is completely different from people who are widely informed. So we need to be well read people. Gathering information everywhere, little bit, and I know all the topics, it helps in a social gathering to show off that you also know something, which is of no use. Such people, Vivekananda must have meant, who was widely informed on various topics, but on detailing, he'll shiver in front of someone. So well-read is very important. We don't have to read 108 Upanishads. one Upanishad you read well, you will get the feel of 108 Upanishads. That is how it is. So this is how we should go into the text. So if we go that way, then it becomes well read, it becomes our experience. We own it, we live it. It has gone deep into us. It is there so deep into us that we would never miss it. It's part of us so deeply. Next question.
I think I'll open it out now for other questions.
You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sudarshan, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, we have one from Mr. Krishna. I'm just sending it to you. Yeah.
So the question is, am I the only one who can see it on screen? I think the only situation where Krishna lost his cool is when the question disappeared. When he used the Sudarshan, it was about the Sudarshan chakra. I don't think it was a question, it was an observation. But
the last line has the question. Can you please explain?
Yes, but can you please show me again on the screen because it disappeared.
So the comment is that the only situation where Krishna lost his cool is when he tried to use the Sudarshan chakra to kill Bhishma, when Arjuna was not able to stand Bhishma. So can you please explain what is the yogic state of Krishna in this situation?
It's a good question. Now, Bhishma and other Pandavas, Arjuna, etc., are good in making promises, not knowing whether that promise itself will hit them back next time. They make promises. Krishna does not make promise. Krishna does not make promise because he won't know what has to come. Arjuna did all those promises. Bhishma took an oath. He took an oath and he said, here I am. I will stay as a brahmachari for all my life. For why? Because Vichitra Veera and Chitrangada can rule and Bhishma will not have children who can make a claim to the higher. Vichitra Veera and Chitrangada both died. When both died, Satyavati comes to Bhishma and saying, get married. Ambika. Amba is still angry with you. Just go get married to Amba. Because Ambalika and Ambika are there in the palace. Amba is the one who wanted. So she tells you, get married to Amba. He said, no, I gave my word. I cannot. That word you gave was for the kingdom. And you could not, now your own word was blocking. Krishna would not give a word like this. All that he said in the battlefield was, I will be only a charioteer. I will not lift a weapon in this war. I will not lift a weapon. And man, we need to understand this very clearly. When Krishna says that, Bhishma looks at Krishna and he says, we'll see. Bhishma responds back to Krishna with a challenge. Oh, you will not lift a weapon? You're sure? Let us see. I think I have the ability in me to get you move on the war. There may come a time where you may pick up the weapon. So Bhishma's challenge was, Krishna, I am challenging you. There can be a moment in this war, you will lift the weapon. Because I think I can invoke that in you, because I'm strong enough. So it was a very, not loudly declared, but a kind of an exchange they had. Bhishma says, when Krishna says, I am here just to take Arjuna on the chariot, I will not fight this war, I'm not going to lift a single weapon. When he says that, Bhishma just smiles and says, let's see. So a challenge was accepted. And the war goes on. Arjuna does not do his job. Arjuna does not do his job. He moves away. When Bhishma comes in front, he will leave and he'll go away elsewhere. Go fight the war somewhere else. And a point came where that particular day, Bhishma was on a rampage. The Pandavas were losing so badly. At that point of time, Krishna tells Arjuna, take Bhishma head on. That was Arjuna's weakest point. He can't face Bhishma. Too attached he was. So he was avoiding as best as he can and fighting the war. So when Krishna told Arjuna, come on, take Bhishma, again, he was saying, no, he'll avoid. So he saw that Arjuna is hesitant. And Krishna cannot wait for adharmic forces to dominate. He says, Arjuna, go hell with it. I am now going to take the weapon up. He goes there and he picks up a wheel. He picks up a wheel in the battlefield. He picks up a wheel and he charges towards Bhishma. Now, here is a wheel which he picked up. And now this wheel, it is not a weapon. But of course, undoubtedly he took it up to attack. So Krishna said earlier that I won't fight this war. It's not a promise or an oath or something, but he gave a word. But he was ready to move away from it for Dharma. When he saw Arjuna was not doing it, Krishna said, now is the time I should put an end to Bhishma. He takes the wheel and he rushes. Arjuna falls at his feet, saying, no, don't. There will be fingers pointed at you that you broke a word and all that. He didn't care about it. He said, personally, what people are going to talk about me is not my concern. I cannot allow Bhishma to dominate adharmic forces, take control on the situation. We need to put an end. When this happened, Bhishma saw Krishna raging towards him. Bhishma drops his weapon and says, now I think I should go. This is my time to go, because he had that desire. He had that boon. He can choose his time of death, but he never got hints when he should drop it. Because he was not finding that right time when he should drop it. Because he had the boon, but he did not know when. When he saw Krishna coming after him, Bhishma says, I got my hint. I got my answer. Now is the time I should leave my thing. And he drops the bow, saying, Krishna, take over. Arjuna begs and pleads and saying, no. And then after that particular day, when the war was over, Bhishma tells that tomorrow if you bring Shikandi, I'll give up the war. And they bring Shikandi and the war, Bhishma goes out of the war. So Krishna said, but he didn't care. Dharma was more priority to him than his personal word. Because Krishna had wisdom when to stay with Satya, when to go with Dharma. This wisdom is very important. We don't have this wisdom. We sometimes will hold on to Satya, not knowing what is Dharma. When Dharma, because our Shruti, the Upanishad clearly says, Satyam vada dharmam chara. So when we have to follow, Satya is one and there is Dharma. At that point, the Dharma was not holding on to a word what you have given, but saving Dharma itself. So Krishna did not bother about his word, he went. So it should be Dharma inclined. Do not break Satya without inclined to Dharma. Satya we can, if it is in line with the Dharma. So Krishna had this wisdom. He did not bother about his word because he said, that's a word. But what is Dharma is more important here. And he chose his dharmic action. That is where it was. I'll put another question to all of you to think. We always say, Ram went to the forest. Dashrath asked him and Kaikeyi got it. Ram went to the forest. I'm just putting a question because it was never there in the books, but I want you all to think. My question is, the person who is taking over the kingdom, Bharat, if Bharat was like Duryodhana, would Ram go to the forest? Would Ram give up the kingdom? Because as a king, he gave up everything, including his family. Because that was king's dharma. If Bharat was not Bharat, and if he was like Duryodhana, would Ram go to the forest? Debatable, okay. But the Ram I adore, the Ram I know, would not have gone to the forest. For him, kingdom would have come more important duty than personal interest and family. But Bharat was someone whom everybody admired. When in Ramayana, if you see, when Bharat comes and meets Guhan, the Nishad king, the forest king, the boatman who took Rama across the river, when Guhan meets, Guha meets Bharat, Guha tells, oh my God, this guy is 100 times better than Ram. And from there they go next. Bharatwaj Rishi says, Hare, this guy is 1,000 times better than Ram. And then Kausalya in the end of Ramayana will say, Koti Rama is not equal to one Bharat. Now you understand what made Ram go into the forest. Saying the person who wants to, the kingdom is gone. He knew is such a lovely person, it would be much better. I will fulfill my father's word and kingdom is also safe. Let Bharat rule, and he walked away. That's why when Bharat pleaded him also, he says, no Bharat, you go do it. 14 years Bharat ruled. And when Ram comes back, Bharat takes Ram to every department of his government. He takes to the cattle and he says, look at the cattle. When Dasharath gave me, this was it. I have multiplied it 10 times for you. He goes to the treasury and says, multiplied it 10 times to you. 10 times. Dasharath was the emperor, the biggest emperor of his time. And his wealth at every department, Bharat has multiplied it 10 times as his offering to Ram. So giving a kingdom to somebody like that, Ram would not hesitate. But if it was Duryodhana, would Ram do it? Bhishma would have done. Drona would have done probably, not Krishna, not Rama. They know the difference between Satya and Dharma. They hold on to Satya and no doubt about it. But when it is Dharma, then they choose Dharma. Mostly, most of us have to perform Satya and Dharma. A rare situation like this may come where your Satya should not come block you down. Your Satya should not limit you. There you should know that moment Satya is not important. Dharma is more important. And remember, when it is Dharma, it is not selfish. It is selfless.
I think.
How many more?
Sudarshan?
Just two more. Whom can you see and relate to?
Yes,
Maybe
however,
last two questions.
But you know, when you show me the questions, I only see the first 2-3 lines. So it's better if you read them because I cannot see the full question on screen.
I'll read it. The first, a question is by Miss Maggie Inbamutaya. In today's world, with community structures coming down and individual aspirations taking the lead, the right action is not very easy to identify. How can a yogic mindset help? Could you please elaborate? After this, we'll take one more and wind up.
Okay, sure. There's a beautiful Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad, where the students, after studying with the teacher for almost 12 years, are going back home. That is called, there's a portion called Convocation Address, where they go on describing what all one should do, one should not do, Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara, it goes on. And every small thing, what you should not forget, and mainly Swadhyayana Pramaditavyam, it goes that way. A set of instructions are given. In that, the teacher says, listen, you have studied under me for 12 years. We have taught you all that we can. But when you go back to your own village, to your own city or town, wherever you come from, when you go back, you will still have doubt when it comes to Dharma. What is right thing to do? You will still have, in the relative world, when you live, you will still have doubt. Something or other will come. When you are facing a doubt and when you are not very sure of your action, that time, go consult a wise man in your village. Go consult a wise man in your town or a city. Go take his opinion and then decide. In doubt whether it is right action or not, discuss with someone who is more intelligent, more wise, with more wisdom, more experience. Talk to them and then take a call is the practical advice the Rishi has given the student in the convocation. Now, why I said this is, a general question like this cannot be answered. I have to only give you what the formula can be. And because the question is general, this is the matrix in which you have to look at the answer, look at the solution. Meet a wise person in that particular question, what is troubling you. In that field, discuss with them and take their opinion and then take a call. Because person to person, situation to situation are different. So what is right to one person may not be right in a given situation at another point. Like the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna goes on giving reasons, reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3, 6, 7 reasons he will give, saying why he should not fight this war. If you take those verses and instead of Arjuna, put Duryodhana. Duryodhana uvacha, not Arjuna uvacha, Duryodhana uvacha. Duryodhana spoke. If Duryodhana has given those 6 reasons that therefore he will not fight the war, it would be Dharma Shastra. It would be legitimate Dharma Shastra, perfect. Words are perfect, the situation is perfect, Kurukshetra, the battle is right, the words are right, uttered by Arjuna, it is adharmic. If the same thing is uttered by Duryodhana, it is dharmic. So, person to person, situation to situation, only certain questions can be answered. But the general matrix, how to look at it would be meet a wise person in that specific field and then ask a question. And that person can answer.
So, yoga uses the term Vitaraga Vishayam for this wise person.
A person without
any raga, dvesha inside them.
Yeah, without attachment, fear and anger.
I think the next question somewhat has been answered. The final question is, Swamiji, how should spiritual organizations and individuals per se communicate to Gen Next and Gen Y the importance of Jnana Yoga? Is being creative in this process a necessity? Because this is my question. So I think what we need to also understand and what I hear is that don't keep the base intact, don't lose the sanctity. But Gen Next and Gen Y need much more today in the age of Instagram and social media. So how are we going to per se communicate to them the importance of what we discussed today?
There is something called Shruti and Smriti. Shruti is the time-tested wisdom, the Upanishad knowledge, which should not be altered, nor its sanctity should be lost. But communicating that Shruti, time to time, is called Smriti. The wisdom of Shruti, according to each age, how you communicate, is called, what we have to remember in that particular age is called Smriti. At Smriti level, we can be innovative. We can adopt different methods to do. But the point is with the organized religion or organized spiritual organizations, if you say, to move time to time takes time. Some of them are not ready for it. Because the world is changing. You imagine the speed in which your electronic gadgets change. By the time you get used to something, it's outdated, the new one comes and you do not know what to do. In this speed of change, the people who have withdrawn, basically, you understand, most of the spiritual organizations, let's say, mainly run by sannyasis, these are the guys who have withdrawn. They want to be quiet and teach Vedas, what the best they can teach in a traditional manner to the traditional audience. They're fine with it. to make that guy come into the world, update himself, then that person who has got that kind of a passion, deep passion inside for Renaissance, for reaching out, only they will start doing it. So is everybody in spiritual organization has got the same passion for Renaissance? No. Most of them has got their urges to move, moksha, let us seek. They seek that area and they teach that. So there are organizations which has come out, which are catering for today's needs. If the present contemporary organizations are not doing that, Sudarshan, start something which can do. Don't depend on the old. Old habits are very difficult to change. So you start something. Get few people and keep all this, but make sure Shruti is not lost. Shruti is retained. The reverence for Shruti is retained. At Smriti level, make a change. Nice talking to you people.
Om, you'll wind up. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Swamiji. Thank you very much, Raghuji. This was a very enlightening pravachan and conversation. There are too many very valuable and precious points to be evoked again, which I will not do for the sake of brevity. But I would like to say that what was very powerfully highlighted is the inseparability of true knowledge with, in fact, love, wisdom, and action. So, as we know, there is that particular adhyaya of the Bhagavad Gita, which is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. And that shows how, when an action, as Swamiji said, is performed to perfection, it becomes knowledge because it requires knowledge. And that knowledge indeed can be kept and passed on. And that is, of course, the essence of the influence that India has exercised for centuries and millennia on neighboring and faraway lands. Essentially, it is the preservation of a spirit of cultivation of beauty and of equanimity in pleasure and pain. Sukhe dukhe samekre toi. This gives us the key to soft power. I know soft power can attract mixed reactions because there is the implicit assumption of a power to force people to do something, when in fact we are talking about uplifting influence, the ability to bring people up. And in today's age, when we see so much coarseness and violence and brutality in speech and action all over the world, and especially in the countries that are supposed to exercise a decisive influence, we realize how important it is to restore that spirit of grace, gentleness, but firmness in everything we do, say, think, and bring about. And that is, I think, where India can really restore its soft power and exercise it, as our two speakers are doing, in the field of enterprise, of education, of youth training, even in such activities as going into nature, camping, climbing, hiking. All those things require a learning. And that learning leads to the wisdom that we all need. So with these few words, I will thank again our speakers, the Soft Power Center of the India Foundation, in particular, of course, Swami Mitrananda ji and Raghu Ananthanarayanan ji, and also Sudarshan Ramabhadran for organizing this event, and all our listeners and viewers. So good evening, namaste, pranam.
Namaskar, Hari Om.
Namaskaram. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.